I'm Jennifer Smith.
And I'm Melva Jones.
And we are Women's Health in Black and White. We had a whole series of videos planned about pregnancy, and we were just going to jump right in and knock them all out. And then my husband suggested that might get a little boring. So we've decided to toss it up a little bit.
Because everybody's not pregnant.
Everyone in the world is not pregnant and may not care.
Right.
We're going to toss it up a little bit. We are going to tackle some pregnancy stuff in the next coming weeks. We've also decided that we're just going to talk about sex.
Yeah. Everybody's into sex. For the most part.
That's a pretty common human experience.
Yes.
So what I'm going to cover today is the basics of sexual response. This is what happens in your body when you have sex. And the research on sex has been done by a lot of people over the years. But of course the famous research is Masters and Johnson. Incredible work came out of that doctor and his assistant in figuring out what human sex is about, what happens physiologically, what happens emotionally even, how things work. And for something that is so basic to all of humans,
right,
up until that point, we didn't know a whole lot. There are people that were just really figuring out contraception at that point, and then Masters came along and said, you know what, I can figure this out for us. So this is all his research, is what I'm going to tell you. There are 4 basic phases of sexual response. Phase 1 is excitement. Now this phase of sexual response can be a few minutes, or it can be a day. You can start flirting with your partner at 8 o'clock in the morning and not have resolution of that flirting until 8 o'clock at night. And in fact, the longer you stretch out this period, the greater enjoyment you can get from it.
Yeah, it builds.
This isn't something that should be skipped. This is the important part, because this is the part that releases oxytocin. This is the part that makes you feel in love. This is the fun stuff. There are a few things happening in the body with phase 1 excitement. Your muscle tension increases. There's an increase in your breathing. Your breath rate increases. Heart rate and blood pressure both increase. At this point, the man will get erect, or at least partially erect, and a woman begins to lubricate the vaginal canal and the outside of the vulva as well. The phase 2 is called the plateau. This is where it's like the body is tensing before the storm. This is the part that happens right before the orgasm. And in fact, a lot of people will link phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3 together and say that they're sort of two parts of one phase. But when this part happens, the plateau, you are having intercourse, having some sort of sexual touch, and the man forms pre-ejaculate, and the woman has a much heightened sensitivity to her genitalia, especially the clitoris, becomes very, very sensitive. Phase 3 is orgasm. Now, I think we consider that like the goal.
Right.
And that may not necessarily be the important part. I mean, yes, orgasm feels wonderful, but all of the build-up to it feels wonderful too. And you can have a very satisfying sexual experience that does not include orgasm. So we don't need to be so goal-oriented. But during orgasm, there are muscle contractions. Those muscle contractions, that's sort of the hallmark of an orgasm. Now, there are changes that happen in the brain at the same time. Neurotransmitters released, and parts of the brain are engaged during orgasm that are not engaged during any other part of your waking life. And the funny thing, too, is that when we look at PET scans of people having orgasms, the logic centers of the brain are completely shut off.
That makes total sense.
You cannot make a decision during an orgasm because you can't think logically at all. At this point, a man will have an ejaculation, but maybe not. Men can orgasm without ejaculating. And a woman can ejaculate as well. Less frequently, but it can still happen. At this point, we enter phase 4, which is the resolution phase. The resolution phase can be just a few minutes, especially for women because we're capable of multi-orgasm, up to hours and hours and hours. A man at 18's refractory period or resolution phase can be as long as 15 minutes. and at 50 can be 20 hours. Most women don't have as long a refractory phase. We may have a little bit of one, but we can usually continue having sex even after the orgasm. And a lot of women can orgasm again and again and again and again. It's unusual for a man to be able to do that. They usually have a much longer refractory phase, especially after ejaculation. If a man has had an orgasm without an ejaculation, it's a much shorter refractory phase. Refractory phase. But if a man has had an ejaculation, then the refractory phase is much longer. That's sexual response.
Yeah. That sums it up in a nutshell.
So hang in there with the next few weeks. We've got some pregnancy stuff coming at you, but we're also going to talk a lot more about sex and what works and what doesn't work and why it works and how to fix it.
Yeah, I was just going to say how to fix it.
So if you have topics that you're interested in, please let us know. Facebook,
Twitter, Instagram.
You can email us. And we are very interested in your comments and stories. We would love to hear from you. Tune into our podcast, Afterglow, because we're going to be talking about some timely subjects. We're going to try to be responsive to what's going on in the news and in the world and get some timely subjects put up there. And come back and check us out next time. Be well.
Bye.